What's going on, boys? Thanks to our patrons and Fiverr customers, subscribe to our Patreon free for behind-the-scenes stuff, arm yourselves, life stuff. If you've been following the Patreon for the last week or so, you're familiar with a writing project I started working on. The first 6 entries or chapters are available for free now on the Patreon to all members, including free members. If you're interested, join up and download it. More will be on the way. And for the remainder of this video, we knocked out the key point in about 35 seconds. We're going to talk about what this project is. Because I'm having fun writing for the first time since Denelum, and that, it's freaky? Thinking back, I thought it was 2018. That might have been a 2017 thing. And this isn't to say I haven't enjoyed the writing I've done elsewhere, but if you're familiar with the channel, you know I thrive on attention and I wither without it. So not only were the Kindle projects mostly unsuccessful and also restrictive because, Amazon, but also they didn't feel worth it, financially or in attention terms. I like people knowing who I am, I like affecting them, I like feeling like there's life in and around my work. That's why those MBTI tests and reports and all these things are free. Not just to members, but free to anybody. And I think Patreon has been such a positive thing in my doing shit online career. Because they give you a lot of freedom, and in terms of percentages, they're rather generous. So, on one platform in Patreon, I can have collections of free work, paid work, as in you buy it and own it, and paid work in the sense it's available to subscribers. You can do delayed access, early access, all that good stuff, all in one place. And you can work serially much easier. And that's important to me because one of the reasons I stopped writing, for the most part, was my lack of ability to do anything the way I wanted to do it. So, or do it in a way I found efficient and satisfying. Example, I'm sitting on one totally completed, finished out novel right now. It's called Monkey Story. That story was born in hatred, and it's effectively died in hatred. Because Denelum taught me a lot about self-publishing. It taught me a lot of things not to do. I.e., don't release anything you have any big plans for, even if you're doing it self-publish-wise, people pay for it. Because in publishing, most publishing houses or publishers won't publish anything that's been made available elsewhere before. So if you're writing something and your dream is to get it traditionally published, then you can't do anything with it other than try to get it published once you're done with it. And getting a novel done is brutal. And then you learn publishing is even worse. Because you think, when you say your story is in the action genre, for instance, what you think genre means is not what genre is in publishing. So when a publisher thinks action genre, they mean there needs to be a certain, or there need to be certain archetypes. You must have them. And then by this point in your story, this thing needs to happen. By that point in your story, that thing needs to happen. It's all writing by numbers because, I'm guessing, because nobody reads, and the few people who do read want very specific things. It's the only way to be profitable, I'm assuming. Or if you want to experiment, then you need to be very experimental. And the crazy thing about all this to me is the capital L literature, that's its own genre. Stories you write intending to be analyzed critically, those are right by numbers as well, which to my mind, defeats the entire purpose. And then that says nothing of the the politicization of publishing. It seems like publishers are controlled by one of two sorts of people. They're either Steven Universe people or they are the baldy beard cap people. Your novel needs either, within the first 20 pages, a dissertation on trisexuality intersection, or an encounter with black youths that the Gen X protagonist wins. So you finally get through this Herculean task of writing your goddamned novel, and then you have to deal with publishing. And all you wanted to do was tell a story, and you're fucked. You are so fucked. Something I've learned about life is if you're going to do anything, then you need to have a realistic reward structure in place. If you aren't guaranteed rewards by the world, which you should always assume you won't be, but even if, especially if you have any doubts, have a way to reward yourself, because if you aren't rewarded, if you don't feel like what you just did was worth anything or meant anything, it kills you. Even if you don't sign a record deal, you need to be able to allow people to listen to your music. Even if you don't sell your paintings or get commissions, you need people to at least be able to look at your art, so you can feel like you did something. Like this huge effort was not totally wasted. And that's what killed my enthusiasm for writing. And it's fucking been killed repeatedly, both because of the circumstances or the realities, certain realities of being a writer today, but ultimately my own stupidity for not being able to figure it out. Thinking only about writing something. Do you expect just doing something to get you results? No, it's everything is in the business side. That's what you should figure out first, stupid. But anyway, I think Patreon is my answer. A way that I can write and undertake larger projects and still feel good about them. Because realistically, I won't be making much money off these, if any. But at least I'll be making some money, and people will see them. Or at least they will be available to be seen. Which, we talk about this sometimes when you're starting your content creation path. It's so much more important to your soul that it could be seen than actually being seen. I know the numbers feel good. That's what you're looking for. That's what you're gunning for. But the possibility that people could see what you're doing or hear what you're saying and care is the little light that will keep you going. Okay, but that's 8 minutes of anything but Penitent solidarity. Let's talk about the story. And maybe that's a way to do it. Maybe I'll make, what are they called? Narrations available at some point. That was the plan, and then it wasn't the plan, but maybe it should become the plan again. I grew up on Halo, and I don't know what it is, because while I get nostalgic sometimes about some things, my nostalgia usually feels more like a, oh, wasn't that cool thing. Whereas with Halo, anything Halo, I look back and I feel better. I play the games now. I haven't played them in a long time, but I've been playing them again. I watch those midnight release videos, and I feel so good and optimistic about the future. Some fiction, maybe by accident, taps into something that speaks to souls. And for me, Halo was my first encounter with something like that. And it still has the same effect on me today that it did back then. But if you're familiar with Halo, we're in a bit of a rough spot. I thought Infinite's open world was a lot of fun, and although I didn't care much for initially I didn't care much for the narrative because of how different it was. I've come to like it, or even by the end of that campaign I was liking it. This is not what I was expecting. I wanted Halo 4 fucked up so many things. The one thing they got right, in my opinion, was Cortana's rampancy, and they did nothing with that. I hear they did some shit in the novels, but then you get to Infinite, and it's a completely different thing, and I didn't like it, but then I did like it because Master Chief's an old man now, and I'm developing an affection or an affinity for old men get sappy narratives. I know it's overdone, but when it works, and with Infinite, they were getting to a point it was working, and it's dead now. And it's so funny, I liked Halo 5's multiplayer, but you'll notice I mentioned... Holy shit. I spoke about Halo's timeline as if 4 went into Infinite. Halo 5's campaign was so nothing, I forgot it existed. I don't even know what happens in that game anymore. I know I played it at one point. Once again, maybe Locke could have been cool, but they fucked it up so bad. They took the goose and they fucked it. Or no, it's the pooch they screwed. Anyway, my soul's been hurting, so I went back and I played some Halo. I never played CE much. I had CE and I played it, but Halo 2 was the one I really grew up with, and then Halo 3 was the one I matured around. Which is funny because now that I'm going back and playing them all, I'm not enjoying playing Halo 2 as much as I did when I was a kid. I'm liking Halo CE a lot more, even though I don't care for the campaign missions very much. I like the way that game feels. Halo 3 is still the peak. And people... Oh, fuck me. Everyone was shitting on Halo Infinite, but I loved it so much. In terms of campaigns, I played it on a computer or on a desktop that didn't run it very well. I was running it at like 22 FPS, and I still enjoyed it. Why? Because it took... The people were complaining about the biomes. The biome was great. That one biome was great. I am so happy that entire game, aside from the shitty parts in the fucking tunnels, the endless tunnels, was all the best environment from the best level in all of Halo. Again, Halo 3 is my favorite far and away, but Halo, from Halo, what are you, stupid, complaining about that? It was great. It was brilliant. Anyway, I'm playing the Halo games again. I beat Ruby's Rebalanced CE on Legendary, and I hated it. Then I went back and I played Brutality Evolved on Heroic, and that was fun until I hated it. But I still liked it. I'm playing Halo 2 with Sprinkles right now on Heroic, and I'm kind of enjoying it. But what I'm doing while I'm playing these games is trying to tap into what Halo tapped into that made it click so hard. Still makes it click so hard. And I still feel it more than I can say it. I'll try to explain it here, but understand these words don't grasp or apprehend what I mean. It feels like the hero's journey, done perfectly. Hero's journey, as it's not just a trope, it's a cycle, it's a thing. But a lot of stories will try to engage it actively, and that makes it lame. The reason Halo does it so well is the magic world is properly magical. The mysterious world stays mysterious throughout, which is one of the things they fucked up in Halo 4. Now, I think with later Halo games, that is a it's an interesting direction. I like the 40K-esque lore bullshit, but the mystery, even within the newer games, is what's key. Initially, the Covenant don't feel like bad guys. They feel, I mean, they're your antagonists, but they feel alien to you. And I think that speaks to the dragon. You don't enter the mystery world and fight someone with, I mean, you can, but you don't fight someone with motives you can understand and you sympathize with, and you also don't go into that stupid trope of the bad guys who just love being bad guys. These things are weird. They're slimy, ugly aliens, and we need to fear them. You're fighting them, and you can guess about what they are, which further contributes to the mystery, but you don't get them. And then there is this entire world, worlds of worlds, that on an even lesser scale you can kind of get, but you'll never totally understand because of the scale and the ancientness. In the flood, oh fuck the flood. But at the same time, within all this gigantic mystery stuff, it's also very simple. These are threats to life, to liberty, and to the pursuit of happiness, and also property. They threaten you on a primal level. They are a lot more complicated, and they are a lot more interesting for it, but the way they come at you, because aided by the fact they're so alien, hit you on an animal level. So your lower brain and your higher brain are both engaged. And who are you? You are the knight in shining armor, both the average Joe and the golden boy. I love that Master Chief's primary trait, the thing that sets him apart from everybody else, is an intangible luck. And I really wish 343 wouldn't have fucked with that with the Gene song and stuff. I mean, you can have Gene song in there, but it's the intangibility of Master Chief's luck that makes it so interesting. I really wish they hadn't fucked with that. You can do everything else, but you need that, I don't know, that mystical thing that defines heroes. And great leaders too, frankly. Every great leader has a thing. We talked about causes and effects last time. What makes great leaders feel so mystical is within a world of cause and effects, you can feel their effects strongly, and you know there must be a cause, but there is no way for you to understand what it is or where it came from. It inspires magic in life, and life is magical. Halo is a magical series in every sense of that word. And I've been missing it, and while the original trilogy is going nowhere, I hope it goes nowhere, I've been wanting more of that, and nothing scratches that itch quite like Halo does. And I mean nothing. There are tons of games and other pieces of media I love, but nothing does that like Halo does. And it looks like we won't be getting any more of that from the franchise anytime soon. There isn't anybody else doing it. So I decided to try my hand at making it. A shameless Halo-inspired ripoff. Because I don't think it's not just the elements or the core mysticism that I talked about, it's also the presentation of it. Like the way they name things, the way the songs sound, the way everybody looks. It's a stylistic thing as much as it is a mythical thing. I was thinking about calling Penitent Solidarity The Coming Night or Coming Night or something like that, and that's not a good title. So I went with the Halo naming convention of big words that speak to something. There is some words presented in certain ways hit you like a hammer, like no solution, no salvation. I still say I didn't come up with that. I felt it, and then I found the words. Penitent solidarity feels like it's hitting in a similar way when I look at it. Because words aren't just words, they don't just mean things, there's an aesthetic element to them. And I love these lore channels. Some are better than others. There's one channel I've found for Warhammer. I'm not big into 40k. I've always liked Warhammer Fantasy better. But Inquisitor Romanov, he makes really good lore videos I like. Installation 00 makes great Halo lore videos I like. I want to make videos like those, and I've tried. For some reason, I am not good at making those videos when I try to approach other franchises. I have enthusiasm and very little else. So, an additional benefit of making my own shit is the ability to make lore breakdowns about something I like with a degree of authority. The planet this story takes place on is called Solidarity. It's an outworld labor resource extraction colony. Some cities, maybe in the Lost Planet vein of things, in which, yes, it is a colony, but there are urban centers. They've been here long enough. But it's still a little bit rough. Most people on Solidarity are proletariat types. Your daddy is a miner and you're a miner's son. Aesthetically looks a lot like Reach, not just in terms of the landscape, but the colors. Reach was so sad and beautiful. And that's something about writing landscapes that's difficult is one, you're not just describing something, you're also trying to make someone feel something, but two, if you try to make them feel something, you fucked up, you fucked up bad, your hands are too tight on the reins, and now your reader hates you. You need to organize everything, explain everything in such a way that people will make themselves feel what you want them to feel without it seeming like you're making them feel it. And that's most difficult in landscapes, because landscapes, it's so easy if you want your landscape to make someone feel something to overdo it. And I find when you're writing, if you're concerned about whether or not someone will get something, keep your hands loose on the reins, and if they miss it, let them miss it. What you don't want to do is fuck things up for the reader who will get it, who would feel the story is shitty or obtrusive if you stuck your hands in and tried to make them get it. You're writing for one ideal reader who gets it. Don't be a dick. Now, Solidarity and the Solidarity Proletariat is managed by the colonial forces. For the most part, they handle infrastructure, security, goal setting, these sorts of things. There is private industry, but the reason there is a central colonial force is to interface both with Armistice or the Armistice Tribunal. I think I had a different name for them, like the Earth Armistice Tribunal or something like that, but the Armistice Tribunal and the Outworld Management Company, the OMC. The colonial forces are a little rough. They are ostensibly the proletariat's representation, but they don't represent them very well. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, but as with any organization like this, they are most concerned with their interests. And Armistice and the OMC are two sides of the same coin. They are the core world or Earth government. I lifted the name Armistice Tribunal from my from my soft power interwar period technology supernatural fascists investigators SCP, but not exactly, thing, which maybe now that Patreon has opened these doors for me, maybe I can do something with that now. I think I have like 30,000 words of that, broken up similarly into serialized little stories. That's all about the Tethian Diktat. I've described that story in the Patreon. This was a while ago, I think. But I stopped writing that because it was the exact same situation. I knew I was going to really, this time, not going to be able to do anything with this in terms of traditional publishing. At this point, I still hadn't worked out how to do self-publishing, and I was about to need to undertake what was basically its own novella for one arc of the story that would change everything. And I said, fuck it. And I set it aside. But I still have it, and maybe we can do something with that now. Maybe release the chapters serially. Who knows? Anyway, that's where I got the Armistice Tribunal name. For this story, I don't have the exact lore worked out, but I've always been fascinated by the way provisional things, including governments, seem to become permanent things and governments. So hundreds of years ago, there is this huge conflict, and an armistice tribunal is established to oversee the armistice and make the peace and keep the peace, and then that just becomes the government. Instead of everything reverting back down to normalcy, the armistice centralizes and uplifts. But it's not exactly uplifting because they're kind of fucked up. They are the central human authority. And in the core worlds, they are the authority. But with how many distant planets humans have colonized now, they can't oversee everything at all times. So that's why you have the colonial forces. That's also, it's not like Armistice doesn't have a presence, but they're operating in an almost expeditionary capacity. They're like their own colonial forces. They're supposed to have more authority than other people and establish more order than other organizations like the colonial forces. But all the way out here, without this oversight, they are just another organization looking after their own interests. Except they maintain a professional fighting force. They do, I mean, colonial forces, you can say they have a hand in the management, they have a hand in some labor. Armistice has no hand in any labor. They don't even oversee business or taxation, or it's not tithing, but let's say resource taxes, business, anything like that. Because that's what colonial forces are supposed to do. They show up when people are fucking up, when the money isn't going to the people it's supposed to go to. Then Armistice steps in. Or if there is a really big fuck-off problem that requires a professional fighting force. But even now, although Armistice, this branch of the Armistice, they operate out of a ship called the Uncertainty Evermore, although they do have ground holdings, they're a bit rusty. And then you have the OMC, or the Outworld Management Company. They're a private organization, but they have been contracted on a wild scale, and they've been contracted forever. They are supposed to oversee and manage taxation and businesses on outworld planets. Like, I don't know, you pay someone to oversee things. And that's not at all what they do. I mean, they do that, but really they're the space CIA. They are this story's ONI or ONI. Except within this story, it's fucked up. I'm getting really strong commie vibes from my own story. it feels important that they are not exactly a government organization. Although they hold higher authority technically than even Solidarity's Armistice branch does. And while the OMC is more linked up with Armistice, core Armistice, than even this Outworld's Armistice branch is, it's another example of it's some Lord of the Flies bullshit going on Solidarity, and I'm sure many other Outworlds in this universe. And then another organization is the SLF, or the Solidarity Liberation Front, the insurrectionists. But they don't do a lot of insurrection. Think of them more as cartels because they're broken up into encampments and there is no unifying leadership structure or chain of command. Each encampment is its own island focusing on its own things, and the only reason they are not individual cartels or encampments across the board is it helps business and security to act like they are one united front. And they do have the capacity to operate as a united front, but that's not the way they operate most of the time. Most of the time, they're more like outlaw communes that specialize in some kind of work, because it's all about the economy. So some encampments specialize in drugs, some encampments specialize in weapons manufacturing, some encampments specialize in smuggling, other encampments specialize in combat. Some encampments are just straight up raiders, and there are actual proper pirate encampments that are not associated with the SLF, but some of them are pretty much just straight up pirates flying SLF colors. And all the encampments kind of collaborate. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. It's usually only when something really big and bad is going on that they unify, but the colonial forces operate the same way. And people on the ground, they don't get to see the armistice side of things. I doubt we'll see much of the armistice side of things in this story. Outside the effects they have, we don't get to see much of their internal politics. It's the same thing there, and the same thing with the OMC. It's all shitty little people and shitty little politics struggling externally and internally over piles of rocks. There is no great prize to win, and even if there were one, there wouldn't be a way to win it. What people on Solidarity are struggling for with each other and themselves is a lifestyle or a status of living that is acceptable to them. That's what all this is about. That's what all this struggle comes from. All this fighting and shit. People just want to live the way they want to live to a level that is comfortable or satisfying to them. It's... how to describe it? Much like the ideal form of the United States government, the way it's supposed to work. I like Colin Quinn's Unconstitutional is still a great comedy special. Comfortable, secure dysfunction. That's what everybody is fighting for. And then motherfucking aliens show up. Aliens show up. Holy shit. These guys are called the Penitents, although it'll be a while before you learn that. Penitent legions or penitent fleets are artifact hunting expeditionary fleets staffed by prisoners, mostly. The Penitents are not here to conquer Solidarity. I need to keep reminding myself of that because it informs everything about them. Much unlike the Covenant, because remember this is a Halo ripoff, but it's becoming, the more I write, more different. Why are they staging military operations while failing to act like a military at all? Why do they do things that don't make a lot of tactical sense? Because they aren't a military. These are prisoners looking for artifacts. It doesn't matter that the Penitent fleet could almost certainly, or this Penitent fleet almost certainly, exterminate every human on Solidarity, because that's not what they're here to do. They are not war wagers. They don't have supreme commitment to the cause. They are here because the alternative is death. And knowing while they are here to hunt for artifacts, they are here because they don't want to die, and most of them are not professional soldiers. That informs why and how they do everything. They could, and I think they will at some point, conquer a city, or even conquer the planet if they put their minds to it. That's not what they're here to do. They want artifacts, or they need artifacts, they need to gather them rather. So while they don't need to engage in subterfuge or anything like that, they could crush everybody. Most of their engagements will boil down to hit and run, or subterfuge, sabotage, or if they need to go all out in a fight, it's shock and awe and try to break enemy troops' morale, because they don't want to die. They need to get their job done, but they don't want to die. And as the conflict builds, this creates an interesting problem. If word got out on the human side that they're being invaded, or even at all dealing with aliens, because up to this point, humans haven't encountered any sentient, intelligent life, big problems. Every major organization on Solidarity loses the control that they've established in this Lord of the Flies situation. Because the dragon that is Armistice, Core World Armistice, and Core World OMC will come in, and that's it. And they don't want that to happen. The powers that be on Solidarity don't want to need to answer to the powers that be back home. The Penitents, I haven't worked out exactly how this would unfold, but if their home civilization, which we're calling the Soanans, very much informed by Soanans, I'm not sure how I want to play that yet, but I like that idea a lot. I like it the most because we'll probably never see the Soanans, we'll see only the Penitents. But having that in the background, that our point of view is the point of view that is informing the way the Penitents are acting, that's a lot of fun to me. Something bad will happen to the Penitents. If they don't get their artifacts, they'll all be executed and replaced. If they start a war with another intelligent empire, that will get in the way of the core world Soanans' goals, and then they'll be forced into a huge war. And some of these aliens, the reason they're penitents is because they tried to desert to get away from wars they didn't want and didn't understand. The penitents want to keep this as quiet as much as the humans do. So this is not a huge intergalactic war. This is like a knife fight in an alley in which both parties are trying to stab each other to death without either one screaming. And I'm having a lot of fun with that concept too, because it's like hick XCOM versus felon Indiana Jones. So the penitents are made up of prisoners of races from the core world Soanan society. And in my head, again, we're not even close to getting to that point in the story yet, if we ever get there. In my mind, Soanan society is actually a lot like human society, but with a lot more species going on. The difference is they are ruled openly by a shadow government that is totally transparent with everything it's doing and why they're doing it. But it's so, like, what is it? You need to be 5 layers deep in irony to understand this meme. It's completely in the open for people, and they all know it. They could probably even recite it, but they don't know what it means at all because they haven't undergone the fucking 20 levels of initiation to understand what they're looking at. They're ruled by a creepy cult that doesn't hide the fact it's a creepy cult, but nobody cares because life is moving on as normal within the bubble of normalcy. Outside that bubble of normalcy, horrifying things are happening. That's why silhouettes. Oh, and that's another thing with the Penitents, their naming scheme. I want kind of a Hades haunted dungeony naming scheme for the Penitents. They're aliens, so the silhouettes are their primary infantrymen. And unlike with Halo, I'm thinking instead of the elites, I think we'll have an elite auxiliary. Penitent forces are constituted primarily of jackals. Not exactly jackals, mind you, but they're called the silhouettes, and these silhouettes are, while they also make up the primary infantry forces of the Penitents, they're used extensively in the Soanan's wars against things that don't make sense. So the way I described it in the Patreon a while ago was, what if in Vietnam, you have the normal draftees who are just kids sent out to walk around in the jungle and to get shot, be chaff. What if the CIA could also draft kids who don't know what they're going on, or what's going on, what's happening, to be chaff, except instead of throwing them at conventional or even insurgent forces, they're being thrown against horrors. There are tons of species fighting in these conflicts, but silhouettes are the primary ones fighting those conflicts. And that's why they desert so frequently, because they're fighting wars they don't understand, or maybe even, as I said in the Patreon, maybe can't understand. And they just want to live their lives, so they try to run, they get captured, and then they get assigned to penitent legions. And maybe that's intentional too. Anyway, penitent legions, and there are a lot of them, are out in the universe looking for artifacts that will help the core world Soanan's government in their goal to escape this reality. It's unclear what exactly that means or how exactly they plan to do it, but they know something awful is coming, and the only way to survive is to transcend this reality as their ancestors did. Or not their ancestors, but past generations. Not fucking generations. Past species, like the Forerunners. Except instead of misunderstanding artifacts as, or artifact weapons as the path to the great journey, or to go beyond whatever it is. Again, it's similar. They are trying to get out of this reality because there is something about the fabric of this existence, maybe in a breathing sort of way, but something awful is coming, and they need to get out. And to do that, they need artifacts. The knowledge and the technology required to do what presumably has been done. Maybe it hasn't been done, I'm not sure. But I like the idea, for selfish reasons, that the Soanans actually have it right. But what it means that they're right, nobody knows. And the Penitent Legions in particular, they have a black and gray and orange and amber aesthetic. Originally that was more like a joke thing. Probably an unconscious thing. I wanted... In Amber Clad is a kick-ass name, and I wanted somebody to be in amber clad. So we've got the black and gray and orange and amber color scheme for the Penitents. Although maybe that has something to do with the Forerunner thing, but that's like gray and orange yellow. Or no, it's orange. Fuck it. But brown too for the Penitents because it's kind of dingy. Their technology, it's more advanced than humanity's technology, but it looks styled like old human technology if old humanity had stagnated aesthetically but advanced mechanically. And I like the ghost. Well, okay, not the ghost thing. Covenant vehicles have that ghost naming scheme. Again, I like that, but with them, it's like a negative spirit thing. With the Penitents, I want it to feel like a hollow, haunted, shadowy thing. So the silhouettes are called the silhouettes, the little demons are called little demons. Oh, and that's another thing I'm very proud of in a patting myself on the back kind of way. Why are there so many grunts in the Penitent Legions? Because the little demons act like little demons. They don't think much before they do things. They get into a lot of trouble. Ergo, many of them get assigned to Penitent Legions. So there is an in-universe reason for why the grunts are so numerous. But anyway, their technology, for the most part, it's all centered around silence or spookiness. So the Penitent weapons don't make a lot of noise when they fire. They're almost silent. When the Penitents fight, usually, they come on fast and hard. They do a lot of surveillance. And they run, too. If they don't need to engage, a lot of the times they won't engage. I want them to feel spooky, like something that is out in the darkness that you're afraid to meet. Because back to the Halo glazing section, I like that the Covenant embodied the dragon. I want the Penitents to embody more of something like what the cavemen might have felt dealing with wolves. Or hyenas or lions or something. Well, no, not lions. They're dangerous, they're very dangerous, but they are not these big, grand things that threaten the universe, or you go up and slay them in some noble fashion. These things are smart, they are survivors as you are survivors, and they hit you where it hurts, if they hit you at all. Because it's not like a war is going on, it's skirmishes. Fast, ugly little skirmishes that to humans don't make a lot of sense because at this point in the story, nobody's worked out exactly what the Penitents are doing. Actually, it's a lot like traditional aliens. The story starts with an abduction, or a number of abductions. In other words, I want them to feel alien in a different way. And I think I'm achieving that. And I also like that although they could technically conquer, not just that they don't, but also that they're defined in large part by fear of death. So, when things are really not going their way, when they get desperate like cornered animals, the few times humanity will be able to corner them, they can throw shit at you that you wouldn't expect, that maybe they don't even understand. I like the idea of when they get cornered, because they're penitent artifact hunters, they might just open up their treasure trove and start throwing shit at you. With consequences nobody can foresee, especially them. And actually, that's a good little segue into the trolls, what I'm calling are the trolls. I want there to be a variety of super soldiers, combatants. We'll start with the trolls. Originally I was calling them shard bearers. One of these ancient species, or maybe the ancient species, needed a lot of chaff units, like immediately. So they developed these obsidian-looking shards that they implant in people's stomachs, or rather, no, because the implant, that was one of the tricks, was The Penitents thought you needed to implant it surgically when in reality you can just eat it. It turns people into super soldiers. Not the superest super soldiers, but enough. I mean, super soldiers to most people, and then in high enough volume that when you throw a wave of these things at whatever it was they were fighting, it's a substantial difference, or it hits hard. I also like alluding to these different ancient cultures or even present culture sensibilities. So, one of the things these shards do is they allow for automatic interpretation. So, we're calling them trolls, there's a reason for that. Trolls can understand other languages, but not speak them by default, though it makes learning those languages easier. And yes, you can view that as people you turn into soldiers need to be able to receive orders, but I also like this idea that these old civilizations that managed to escape this reality, maybe, were for some reason focused on communication. To the point they wanted their chaff, you're designed to die soldiers to have a foothold in communication. And with the trolls, an emphasis on consciousness. They have a number of abilities they can use, but all those abilities' functionality relies on the trolls focusing on them. For instance, they don't have energy shields. Instead, when they're taking fire, they can, with a degree of precognition, feel where bullets will come from, and then as they close in, as the shots finally get fired and the bullets close in on them, they can demake them from reality. That's their shield. The issue is, if they get shot from outside their awareness, or they're walking around not focusing or not expecting to be shot, they're vulnerable. Or if the volume of fire is too high, too much for them, even with their enhancements, to focus on, to anticipate, they're dead. Or if there's just too much going on for them to focus on, they're vulnerable. It's all in the focus. The same with their healing, the same with their strength, their speed, and so on. And initially I was making it, I realized I was accidentally creating Mary Sue's, and I'm thankful I was able to stop that. I wanted trolls to be super soldiers relative to humans, but they aren't. They were, and they still are, chaff soldiers. So they have special abilities, maybe they'll have some very special abilities, but firstly, I want their array of abilities to be somewhat limited, but the focus element, I'm really glad I stumbled into that. That keeps them weak. And in that Dune sense, the strongest trolls, the trolls who are best able to use their abilities, will be the ones with the most mental fortitude, the most willpower. However they achieve it, if that's discipline, if that's talent, whatever allows them to focus on a lot of things at once. And when they don't focus, or when they get tricked, it's as easy as killing them like a normal person. That helps with the themes, even though I don't know what the themes are yet. And it also gives me some leeway in writing, which has already helped. Then with the humans, particularly Armistice... Oh, that's another thing, the naming scheme, that was fucked up. I think I'll stick with it, maybe I'll change it at some point. The naming scheme for Armistice human vehicles follows a medieval or antiquity siege equipment, or older modes of transportation things. Because the animal naming scheme for the UNSC is genius. You can't copy that. So what is a good way to name modes of transportation? It's modes of transportation. Anyway, the Armistice super soldiers are called partisans. And Sticking with Halo, I always liked that while baseline humans were inferior to most Covenant troops, that the Spartans were above them, the Covenant troops. That was a weird gap that I liked then, I still like now. The partisans are the Spartans of this universe, and they are above, in terms of combat, the Penitents and the Trolls and just about everybody else. The only issue is, as with the Spartans, there's a limited number of them, especially on an outworld like this. Frankly, there shouldn't be any, but not only are there some, but there are also quite a few, which adds to some suspicions, adds to some conspiratorial thinking. Partisans are really fucked up. Humans, baseline humans, can wear partisan armor and it'll make them a little bit more effective, but they can't use it right. I don't like the idea with the. Well, I mean, okay, with Halo, the Mjolnir thing, literally, you can't pick it up. You can't pick up the hammer. You can't wear the armor. Brilliant, mythical, love it. In Penitent Solidarity, baseline humans can and do wear partisan armor, but and it does make a difference, but it's not the same. It's nowhere near the level of effectiveness of a partisan wearing partisan armor. And even when a human is wearing it, they're clumsy in it. So yes, they're more dangerous, yes, they're more protected, but no, they are nothing like a partisan in partisan armor. And a partisan in partisan armor is otherworldly levels of horrifying. Halo novel, Chief in the Books, horrifying. And I say horrifying because this is a universe in which the Spartans, or the partisans, did and do get deployed on humans. And that's not just gruesome, it also contributes to what partisans are like as people. I like the point. The Spartan threes are interesting because I like the prevalence of mental illness in them, psychopathy in a lot of cases. Spartan threes who were created or picked from people and created to be weapons of hatred against the covenant. That's what partisans are, except used up to this point on humans. That level of psychopathy and aggression and hatred applied on humanity. That's what a partisan is, usually. And I'm having fun with this because I don't know how partisans are made yet. I know that a partisan outside its armor is very different from a baseline human, but I don't know how they achieve that difference. Because in universe, partisans are so uncommon or deployed so selectively, people know, or people who would be dealing with partisans know what partisans are. But most people probably haven't seen one. And according to most people's knowledge, common knowledge, who know about partisans, they don't know what they look like under their helmets. They're very obviously not baseline humans because you get to see what a baseline human does in partisan armor. So what is different about them that elevates them that much in their armor? I don't know yet. But they're spooky. Partisans are so spooky, and the spookiness is a lot of what I'm trying to accomplish here, and the partisans are spooky. Weird shit happens. Somehow certain groups maybe steal some armor, and then the next day they're just gone. In this story, that's something like that happens. Fucking cryptid shit. They get a hold of some partisan armor and they lock it down in secure storage. The next day, it's gone. I haven't written that part yet, but it's gone. Nobody knows how. Everything in this universe is spooky so far, and I'm liking it. It's happening. The spookiness is arising naturally. And then what we haven't seen yet are what I'm calling catapults. Those are like the Omega Spartan 3s, but There's so much CIA shit. They're golems. You thought partisans were bad, catapults are worse, and odds are good you don't even know what a catapult is. That's how fucked up they are. Or well kept secrets they are, I don't know. The partisans of partisans. If we're talking, if the Covenant were dragons, and the Penitents, and maybe even partisans here, are like wolves in the dark, these are like lions who hunt at night. Or I don't know why cryptids are speaking to me so much when I think about the story. It's some Makili Mabimbe shit. I was a kid when I first read one of these novels about. There was a series of novels about cryptids. I think they were aimed at young adults. No, not young adults. They were aimed at, or maybe it was young adults. But that name always stuck with me because I think that was the first time I ever experienced books on tape, and I think it was actual tape. But the idea was there's some big words in the story, so you put the cassette in and you listen to it and you read along, and they drop Makili Mabimbe on me. I think I'm still pronouncing that correctly. Spooky velociraptor that's so dangerous and low in number that you get the point. Dangerous, spooky, yet another unknown to fear. And I know, or I feel like the Penitents should have, or maybe they shouldn't. Maybe that's a thing from Halo we should keep. That the aliens don't have their own super soldiers to this level. I'm not sure yet. I know, at least right now, there are no Penitent trolls. But actually, the Penitents have their own human collaborator trolls. And I haven't worked out what that's about yet. So maybe that'll be their super soldiers. Humans. There will probably be some poetry in that somewhere. But anyway, the idea in writing all this stuff is, yes, to recapture Halo, yes, to explore stuff I care about, also to keep writing fresh. I write them not as chapters, though so far they've served as chapters, but it's more like scenarios. I could write other scenarios, but I don't want to plan anything. So far, I feel like everything is aligned wonderfully, and I haven't planned a single thing. I've sat down and I have let things happen, and they have come out in a way that I am happy with. I intend to continue to do that, because if you try to work from an outline, and I love writing with outlines, it's brutal trying to build up motivation. But if you know you can sit down and let the story happen, it stops feeling like work, although it is work. It does feel like work. It feels more like you're sitting down to watch a television show than it does to try to write a full goddamned novel. And that feeling is brutal, and that's what makes you stop writing. I need to keep this fun. And that means not making it feel like work, even though writing is brutal work. I need to trust my anima to handle this shit for me. Let the bad bitch do her job. But okay. For now, I'm sure I'm missing something, but I've talked a lot, and I think we're done. If you're interested in reading and following the project, join as a free member. The first 6 entries are free. I'll probably make the rest free too, but again, maybe on an early access thing for paid members, or maybe available for purchase, I'm not sure. We'll need to figure it out. But we have a path forward, and I'm enjoying this, and there's a way to do it, and we're already doing it, and I'm feeling good about it right now. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you haven't.